Thank you. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. Great to have you with us. I'm your Godzilla of the truth in America, trucking the truth every day, your oracle of the deplorables. Joining me now, Eric Trump from the Trump Organization. Been on my show many times. He was my liaison when I was chairman of the Trump campaign in Virginia in 2016. And it's great to have him back on this Super Tuesday. And Eric, great to have you, man.
It's a big day. It's a big day, John. You have been there with us from the very beginning. We love you, and it's great to be back on, man.
On the escalator and before that. But look, Eric, good to have you today. Super Tuesday. What do you think? I just want to get on the Democratic side a minute. We've had a lot of phone calls today of people voting for Bernie that weren't necessarily for him, but they feel that he's getting screwed by all this Biden, the establishment. You know, they get Pete out of the race. They get Amy out. They're all backing Biden now. He wins one state. Is that a similar thing, or am I just getting that? Am I the only one getting that, or have you kind of heard that?
I hate to use a word, but he is getting screwed. You said it right. He is absolutely getting screwed. I mean, look at what happened to him in 2016, right? I mean, arguably he should have been the one that my father, went against, and, my father would have beat him handedly as well. But, the superdelegates and everybody got behind the whole, mechanism, got behind Hillary. And, he totally got screwed. And then look what happened yesterday. And, I was the first person to call it out yesterday morning on Twitter, right? Buttigieg drops out of the race. And I go, interesting, you have a guy who's dedicated his life for the last 18 months to running for commander-in-chief, right? He's on the road 18 hours a day. He's in every single state. And you mean to tell me that 36 hours before Super Tuesday, 36 hours, he just decides to drop out of the race? Like, give me a break, right? I mean, even if a campaign, and this wasn't the case with him, but let's assume just for a second, John, that his campaign was totally out of money and this and that. Fine. Eat McDonald's for 36 hours. Go through Super Tuesday and see where you end up. And the guy wasn't last place. I mean, he's probably in fourth. He's probably in third or fourth, honestly. So he just happens, after 18 months, 36 hours before Super Tuesday, to drop out of the race. What was promised of him? Mm-hmm. What was promised of him? Was he promised VP? Was he promised a cabinet position? I mean, what was promised of him to do it? And it's just, this is the pathetic politicians that America can't stand. I mean, this is why my father is in office, because people read through this nonsense. It's not just coincidence that he decided to get out of the race. Biden's campaign and the DNC and Perez and everybody else, and you probably had Obama calling, and you probably had other people calling, encouraging him to get out of the race and promising him everything in the world, if he did. And that's why American people hate the political elite. They see through this garbage.
Well, Eric, you're right. This is exactly what they loathe. This is why we were able to win in 2015-16, because we had a movement that rejected all this stuff, spit it out like a bad blood transfusion. But what they're doing here, and you're right. I got the TV on last evening, and I'm in Richmond, and there's TV ads coming on for Mayor Pete. So there's TV ads are still on, right? Radio ads are still running. Billboard, I mean, he's got an advertising machine in the state, so I'm seeing ads for him. They're still on. They're already paid for, and he drops out of the race with a day before, right?
I saw a Klobuchar ad this morning, John. I saw a Klobuchar ad running this morning. So either they're that incompetent that they don't know how to actually turn off their advertisement, or again, why wouldn't you just let it ride for another 36 hours? And these people are pathetic. They really are. They're pathetic.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. We're with Eric Trump. Everybody knows Eric, obviously part of the Trump Organization. Eric, I want to get to the coronavirus, if I may. And you talk about the fake news media. So for 3 days, all we heard about was how much the stock market went down, how it's crashed. This is the biggest thing ever. It's going to be the end of the economy. We're all going to die, right? We heard that for 5 days. Wall Street in complete chaos. Yesterday, the market goes up almost 1,300, biggest one-day gain since October 2009, went up 5.09%. Has it gotten any coverage at all?
Zero. But I am very proud of myself. So on Friday, I wrote a tweet in the middle of the day. I go, you know what? Just my 2 cents. Right now, this second would be an absolute great time to buy. And the market was down 1,000 points. Literally, I sent that tweet. The market comes back up another 700 points that day, right? And then obviously you go into yesterday was up, 1,300 points, and and today, et cetera, et cetera. So I feel like a super genius right now, John. But listen, they'll do anything they can. Joking aside, they'll do anything they can to try and use anything possible to take the man down. Right? I mean, something as awful as coronavirus started in China. Clearly, a worldwide pandemic. They'll use to try and blame Trump for some reason. Oh, he's not prepared. There's never been an administration, there's never been a country that's more prepared than they are. And by the way, there's no person who will put more time and energy and effort into just absolutely demolishing the pandemic than clearly my father will. But it actually shows the sickness of these people, that they're willing to take something that started in China. Right? I mean, you've had many pandemics over the years, whether it's Ebola or whether it's swine flu or it's, we could go through the list, but they'll say that they'll spin it, and they'll get their, the extension arm of the Democratic Party, the mainstream media in this country, to literally blame the problem on my father. It's like an amazing thing. It didn't even start in the United States. One thing if it starts in the United States, which is kind of the buck stops with the commander-in-chief, it didn't even start here. My father was the first person who's always said, this is why you need border security. This is why we have to be able to, turn off access from certain countries into the United States. Not just for terrorism, and a lot of it's terrorism, but we have to be able to control our borders. I mean, literally, you have the Democratic Party, which is fine with hypodermic needles on the streets in California. They're totally fine with people defecating in the middle of the street. They're fine with people living in tents and camps, and they're the one outraged about a pandemic. They should clean up their own act, and they should stop politicizing something that didn't even start in the United States.
Well, they're weaponizing the virus. In fact, you had one member of the fake news media trying to coin it the Trump virus. I mean, how sick is that? Right? It's just sick. But that's what we have to deal with in the fake news every day. That's why you're on shows like mine, because I am the Godzilla of truth. We just try to get it out. It's so easy to do when you just tell the truth. But what they've done with this virus, trying to weaponize it as some kind of a campaign hammer, is beyond the pale. I mean, they've done a lot of stuff to your father, but this has got to be right up there with the worst, Eric. No question about it. Hey, let's get to another big topic here as far as China is concerned. And I asked this question at the press conference the other day. How does this affect phase one deal with China? Your father, since the beginning, President Trump has been talking about bringing the supply chain back to the United States, how critical that was. Remember all the globalists saying it didn't matter, manufacturing didn't matter, it was all about getting cheap consumer goods. Now all of a sudden, the globalists are saying a different tune. Now they're saying, yeah, we do have to bring our supply chain back from China. With all this going on, how do we accelerate that, Eric?
Well, they proved Trump right again, once again, right? I mean, they proved him right. Remember the argument 3 years ago, John, which is, we demand free trade. Trump's not a free trader. We demand free. And he's sitting there saying, "Come on, guys, what do you mean? I'm an absolute free trader, but there's nothing free about trade, right? They're tariffing all of our products, and we're letting all of their products in for free. There's nothing fair about this, right? I want fair trade. I want free trade, but I also want fair trade." But he's also said exactly this. Maybe the greatest thing that's happened is as he put tariffs on China. I mean, first of all, the United States made an absolute fortune. But what it actually caused, and this relates to Corona, but what it actually caused was it caused the diversification of companies that were making product in China, leaving the country and going to other places, right? They went to Vietnam, they went to Pakistan, they went to Brazil, they went literally all over the world. And by the way, many of them came right back here to the United States, which is why manufacturing is surging. But that's a really good thing, because then, fast forward 3 years, you see coronavirus, right? All of a sudden, you actually have diversity of product around the world. You have companies and products that were only made in China before, which are a problem when you have a virus. It's a problem when you have a pandemic. It's a problem when you have a war. Could you imagine if you ever had to go to war against a China and they made 90% of the product? That's not sustainable. And so guess what? That product is diversified all around the world now, and it's actually been a great thing. So not only does it help American interests, not only does it shield us and diversify us in a certain way, but it's also, quite frankly, I think it's hurt the economy of China tremendously because of their manufacturing. I mean, they've never seen, they had the greatest manufacturing boom, one of the greatest manufacturing booms since, America had the Industrial Revolution. Now look where China is going. They're going the exact opposite. You know, our markets, John, are at an all-time high in this country, and China is totally faltering. And it's because so much of their manufacturing is leaving, and it's because of the diversity of product, and that's a good thing for the United States. It's a good thing in times like this. It's a good thing in times of, if you ever got there on, you know, everybody would hate it, but, you know, in a time of war, you need that. You can't be reliant on one mega power to produce all the world's products. It's not sustainable, and quite frankly, it's really dangerous.
Oh, look, Eric, you're so right. We have to get our supply chain back. I'm just about out of time because I know you've got other pressing issues. Let's get to Virginia Trump campaign for a second. 2020, you and I worked together very closely in the 2016 campaign. One Super Tuesday, that was fantastic, came up short against Hillary by 4.5. Is Virginia in play, Trump campaign 2020?
Yes. The simple answer is yes. In fact, I'm predicting a landslide in terms of a lot of states. A lot of states that were never typically on the map for Republicans. You know, Republicans, John, you know this very well, always had a very kind of thin map, right? They had to run it perfectly. If they didn't run it perfectly, because, you know, Democrats control New York and California and a couple other really big states, you know, they would otherwise clobber you, right? It's why we played in places like Maine too, where you're trying to, you know, play for one electoral vote and make sure you win it, because that was necessary for the map. I think the map's been turned upside down, because I think people really see through. I think it's transparent for the first time who politicians really are, and I'm talking about it on both sides of the aisle. I mean, these are some bad people. They see that the utter hate for everyday Americans. They see the utter hate for a president who's done a phenomenal job. They've seen them try and impeach the man off of nonsense over and over and over. They've seen them try and destroy lives. Admiral Ronnie Jackson, you remember they tried to just destroy his life, and Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, people see these people for who they are, and they also see a country that's never been more successful and never been more prosperous and never done better and never had better markets, never had a stronger military, never had lower unemployment and consumer confidence and stock markets. And guys, I could go on and on and on. And I think it's gonna lead to one of the greatest blowouts in modern day politics. I think we're gonna expand the map. I think we're gonna win New Mexico for the first time in a very long time. I think we're gonna win Minnesota for the first time that a Republicans won in a very long time. I think New Hampshire's in play in a very big way. I think we're going to win Virginia, and I think this could be Reagan-esque in terms of what happens on election day. So I always want to play as if we're behind, but I think there's a good potential that people in this country are just sick and tired of the nonsense, are going to come out and revolt against kind of the political elite of this country.
Well, I hope you're right. I think we are going to win again in 2020, only bigger. We're going to add New Hampshire. We're going to definitely win Minnesota. I think we got a heck of a shot in New Mexico. And I think, look, I'm glad that we're putting the resources in Virginia. I think it's in play. I mean, if you look at what we were up against in 2016, we had, we had Terry McAuliffe was the governor. He was Hillary's campaign chairman. You had Tim Kaine running for VP, senator from here. We were outspent in Virginia big. You know, none of these things are going to happen in Virginia in 2020. Plus, we got the issue with the guns and some other things coming. So I think we have a shot to really make Virginia close, and I look forward to us working with each other again. That was fun working with you in 15, 16. I had a fabulous time.
Yeah, we'll get it again, John. We'll get it again.
Okay, Eric, we're out of time. Thanks for being with us. Eric Trump, you're on the John Fredericks Radio Network.